My name is Reuben Armstrong. I'm a filmmaker, director and animator. Today I am at DBS Music and I'm going to be doing a talk about how I've worked with sound designers and composers as a filmmaker and how that relationship works, and hopefully give away kind of some of the secrets of getting that communication right. Hello, I'm Reuben. I'm half of Reuben and Jamie. We're filmmakers. This is me on the left, that's Jamie on the right. I work more as a director. My background is animation, and Jamie works more as a director of photography, and his background is sort of graphic design. And we've been working together for about 9 years now. And yeah, there you go, there's some pictures. That's us doing some work. So today I am going to talk about how we work with sound designers and composers. So hopefully some of you will be interested in making sound music for film. And yeah, we mainly work across kind of short form, documentaries, music videos, commercials, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've got a few things to talk through. That's a kind of rough overview of what's in the talk. So first up, I'm going to kind of introduce another Jamie Fry, who I've worked with for a really long time. I went to uni with him. He's a sound designer, and he's pretty much been doing projects with me ever since. So a lot of the work is his. And then yeah, I worked through kind of how we've gone from basically almost chronologically how we've gone from being flatmates to doing paid work, and yeah, a little bonus of a film about sound at the end, so it's almost a complete reverse. So yeah, first up, long-time collaboration. This is Jamie Fry. I put this little video of him in here because the other day we flipped the camera on him while we were doing a take, just to sort of show the focus on his face whilst he's recording sound, which I thought was quite funny. Yeah, it's like one of these people you never really see necessarily. You're hidden away behind the camera, like I prefer to be. And yeah, but Jamie's kind of mucked in on all kinds of things. So he's done sound recorders on shoots, composing. Sometimes he just ends up working as like a gaffer on a shoot and just helping us with lighting. We just become mates, so you end up people with you have a kind of collaborative relationship. Because we've worked together such a long amount of time, you start to build up this kind of shorthand communication. But anyway, there you go. Check out his site, jamiefrysound.com. This is probably pretty much one of the first projects we ever did together. This was my third year project at uni, which was to design a TV channel that didn't exist. Basically, this idea was Flow TV. It was almost like it was wallpaper. You could play it in bars, and it was kind of interesting visuals and strange stuff to watch. So as part of it, we made a series of weird idents that kind of jump out at you. And so this is some of the strange stuff. Come on in. This is some of the strange stuff that we filmed at uni. So it's me skateboarding with a horse's head on, and then Jamie Fry's done sound on it.
Legendary.
So yeah, that's pretty weird. Yeah, that's all filmed in Bristol, stuff that we shot 10 years ago. So yeah, it's quite a strange project really. And at uni, I guess, you think the projects that you're going to be recognised for by industry are stuff that are a bit more normal, and it's like, oh right, that's the thing that people do. that's quite weird and didn't really feel like it fitted into many boxes. And so that really helped us cut through. As sort of fun as it looks now 10 years on, actually that was one of the main things that got me my first job. Just because it was weird, and it was not like, you know, they were seeing tons and tons of students coming in for interviews, and then they saw something like that and they were like, yeah, let's get that kid in who wore a horse's head. That was a bit weird. So yeah, sometimes it pays to be weird. So yeah, that was when where we first started out. Over the years, we've done a lot of projects that we kind of initiated or thought up or wanted to do, and then they kind of snowballed and led to other work. So this is a project that we did, when was it now? Maybe three years ago, for a signage company in North London called Goodwin and Goodwins, and they make these big kind of typographic light up letters. So we could see the stuff they were making as a signage company. Thought, wow, it's really cool. That's quite interesting, quite visual. So we sort of approached them and said, like, oh, can we make a film for you? And they were like, yeah, we'd like a film for our website. Can you do us some sort of like 5-minute introductory film? And so then we took that brief away and then came back and pitched to them, okay, yeah, we can do a little film, but you know, let's go mental and do some other stuff as well. So we basically pitched to them to make a film, but then as part of that, make lots of other little bits. And the reason was they were worried about, if we show too much of their craft, we'd give away how they make the signs. If you peel the front off and you start to see inside, they'd get huge industrial warehouses in China just copying all of their products and just making them en masse. So we said, well, how about we just think about all of their sign makers as magicians? So you know, you almost get a bit of metal and you see them bending it, and then you see them bang it on the table, and then it's a fully formed finished letter, and you just jump cut it and hide it and make them look like magicians. So that was our kind of main idea. So yeah, I won't play you the whole documentary we made, but here's a little snippet from it so you get a taste.
Bend, calculate sides, drill holes, and we have to glue things together, and then we have to wire them up.
You start off with just raw materials, and then through your own handiwork, you turn into nice letters.
So yeah, that's a little taste of Goodwin and Goodwin's Signs of Soul. So it's pretty mad, it's pretty frenetic, it's quite sort of feels quite rough and creative, which really is the spirit of the studio. So as part of making a documentary where we interviewed all of their staff first and we did an audio edit just to get a narrative, we then broke that narrative down into lots of little creative stop motion ideas. And so the idea was to make loads of GIFs. So this is a kind of cross-section of some of the mad sort of weird bits and bobs we grabbed in their studio and turned into little animations. And some of them hang off certain things people said. So they said they shipped signs to Sweden, Norway and Denmark. You know, clients phone up and say, I require signage. So some of it was using, you know, we kind of just went into their studio and laid our hands on all of their interesting bits and bobs really. So this is their kind of warehouse, main kind of workshop area, and everyone there, they don't really have job titles. Everyone there's just a sign maker, and so everyone's got a real generalist approach. And we just embedded ourselves in the business for 2 weeks, working with them, and that was me and Jamie Fry. And so Jamie Fry, you know, sound designer, but he's helping me make stop motion animations as well. And then obviously because there's the two of us there, we could also make sound and record sound that was from the workshop. So we took this grey box in the bottom left that was a spray paint booth, and we basically just covered that in rugs and turned it into a Foley booth. And then went round and just picking up different tools and weird things we could find to record very basic sort of Foley. So there you go. That's a little taste of some of the weird objects we just went and recorded. And then that gave us a kind of library of sounds to work with. So not only were we making animations in the studio, we were also recording the real sounds from it and sort of cross-referencing it all. So as well as making GIFs, we made Instagram posts. So the idea is that this, like, rather than you just have one film and you just drop it and then it's like, did people like it? We were going to give Goodwin and Goodwin like a year's worth of content, really, like they could post stuff almost every week on Instagram. So we had things like this. So that's, yeah, just going around collecting all the ampersands and spotting things. And it's, you know, the sound doesn't necessarily match up with the visual. So, you know, it's quite sporadic. You know, you might go get a bit of sound from this bit of kit, and then we've made an animation out of this, and that kind of mixed up vibe, I think, kind of makes it feel a bit unorthodox and quirky. That's a bit more sound sync, that one. This is the tiniest G we could find. And tiny little screw. So yeah, we did some real macro stuff with them as well. So I mean, the idea was to kind of yeah, embrace the spirit that they have in. I mean, I wouldn't really call them you know, a signage workshop. Really, they're much more like a design studio, very creative. And yeah, so we sort of tried to embrace that ethos and make a film that felt like it was theirs. And so yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, this was a self-initiated project in a way. We contacted them because we thought there was something there. And this project ended up, for us, exploding. The GIFs gave us a blue tick on Giphy. We got a nomination for an award in a film festival for sound design, Vimeo staff pick, and won a Royal Television Society Award last year for it. So that was, you know, what started off as something that, you know, we just wanted to do as a creative thing, completely snowballed, and we won a lot of work off the back of it. So I guess it's there almost as a lesson to say, if you've got an idea and you've got something that you feel you really want to make, and, you know, it's quite a representation of our sort of cross-section of skills of sound and animation, documentary. You know, we really wanted to put it all together, and what we did on this project translates to then doing corporate jobs. So there you go, converted to corporate. A lot of the same skills that we used, especially in terms of sound design on that one, we then ended up using on a really big job for Jaguar Land Rover. So the same principle of having, I think there were various microphones we had. So there was an electromagnetic microphone, a kind of conductive vibration something. You'll know the words for these microphones better than me, but one that recorded the vibrations. And we put these on all the different bits of kit. One of them we left taped to a CNC machine for about an hour, whilst it just went up and down, and you get all these amazing kind of high-tech robot sounds. So then, taking that on board for Jaguar Land Rover, this job was about their approved pre-owned process of reselling Jaguars as new. So there's 165 checks that they go through to check that it is as good as a brand new car. And so then you can still get a Jaguar that is cheaper, but it's been through the official checks with their engineers. So this film was really, I think the kind of line for it was, it's all in the detail. So this film was all about us trying to champion those 165 checks and those details. So we used a lot of the same kind of microphones to listen to various kind of devices they used to check, is the air conditioning working, tire pressure, you know, all this kind of stuff. And we spent 5 days filming with these guys up in the Midlands in the Jaguar Land Rover workshop, working with real engineers and real devices and catching real sound that's ultimately completely ownable by them. So this is, we made a range of films, but this is one of the main films that was made for it. And this is kind of stripped back, so I've taken the voiceover off and I've taken the music off, so you can just hear the sound that we recorded in those workshops. So yeah, we had 3 cars to drive around Milton Keynes and get those shots. And you know, one of the things we did was tape a microphone on the underneath of the car and drive it around, so it's all, you know, the real rumble. And obviously you can push it a bit more, make it even more bassy. But yeah, that, I mean, hopefully it's just in those 3 projects you start to see a kind of arc from a university brief that is quite sort of loose and almost silly, to then ending up with like something that's like a big sort of corporate blue chip job. And actually there's a lot of things that are very similar in the way that, you know, myself and Jamie work together on those kind of things. So yeah, it's kind of interesting when you look back at it. But the majority of jobs that we do are much more sound to picture. So the edit is pretty much locked off before any sound design or music is done. So I wanted to put a project in that shows that, just because it's a bit more kind of the norm. So this project is a project we did for Nike, and it was to sell this shoe, this specific shoe, which is a sort of 4-a-side, 5-a-side, sort of cage court concrete shoe, and specifically it's designed for the playmaker, so it's the kind of creative midfielder, and that is the kind of, you know, that's the level Nike go to with these kind of things. So that, you know, they're talking about the traction underneath, the materials, the shape, the rise of the ankle, all of that kind of stuff is designed with a specific role in mind. And so because it's the playmaker, they said, okay, well, let's mash up football and video games. So this whole campaign for this shoe, it started just with this shoe and this idea of video games, and as you'll see, it really escalated. So first thing we did was look at the history of video games from a visual point of view. You start off with very kind of vector-based stuff, you get more kind of pixelated 8-bit, and then you get all the way to kind of modern day, super sort of crazy kind of heads-up display, UI, high-tech vibes. So we wanted this to have this kind of history of video games. So you've got kind of retro throwback, but then also a kind of connection to modern gaming. And so the first thing Nike wanted us to do was to make a promotional animation for that shoe. This idea of scanning and wiping was a way of being able to wipe to the different worlds. So we had those different kind of visual references of video gaming. And so we basically just remade the boot, working with 3D animators to just make it again in different styles, in a kind of Minecraft style, a Sonic style, a Tron style, and yeah, then you'll see how this animation ends up. So yeah, that's starting to get a bit mad with the sound. So yeah, I mean, I guess you know, you've got to have a lot of kind of bit crushed stuff. You've got to have stuff that you know is referencing certain notes from kind of classic gaming. But that's basically, that was just the start. That was a kind of product film. They embedded that in tables and stuff like that in the store and posted it on YouTube and Twitter and stuff. But that's not where they stop. A brand like Nike don't just stop at just making an ad. They try and completely then live that experience and that campaign out into their audience. So the boots were aimed at what they call FOTs, so football obsessed teens. And so what are football obsessed teens like? Playing football. So they just put on a football tournament. So then the campaign basically ended up with lots of different tournaments within various countries around Europe, leading to this, which is the European final, which is in Amsterdam. And this was in a giant cylindrical like gas container, a disused gas storage facility, with a ring of 10 projectors projecting all the way around the room. The DJ booth on the halfway line was a giant arcade machine. The pitch was this kind of shattering neon motif. And so yeah, we were asked to create animations for this event that could be cued during the game. Each game was, I think it was first to 2 goals, just 2 minutes, played on concrete, like seriously fierce football. And yeah, basically there's a DJ constantly playing, so we had to make various kind of graphics that could be queued up, short little animations that would both work as a 360 strip around the arena and also in the 16:9 screen in the booth. So here's some of the examples of some of the animations. So there was Winner Stage, which is what the name of the tournament was. And from a kind of sonic point of view, like they're quite, they're almost quite stripped back and quite kind of bulky in the sound, because actually you've got to have music playing throughout. So there's just a DJ playing. So we wanted some stuff that it could cut through, but it didn't feel too kind of musical. This is kind of if someone gets nutmegged. So yeah, you can kind of imagine like the entire room flashing and going when someone got nutmegged. Was completely mad. And we had a kind of console, like an MPC machine to queue up the visuals. So I was basically standing watching the match, and if I saw a skill or something, hit the button. And then there was another guy he was an ex-player who had a big red button, and if he hit the big red button, the replay animation would be played, and that would mean that they would then capture that moment, that skill, and it would immediately be uploaded to social media. So it was a massive event. And yeah, so here's replay. Really nice tail off on that. Yeah, and it was about 8 hours the whole event, and yeah, matches every 2 minutes, so it's super fast, super chaotic. I think Skepta played, and Lukaku turned up and gave out the Player of the Tournament award. So yeah, it was just completely bonkers. But that's the sort of level Nike do an event like that. So yeah, here's a little video that kind of captures some of the vibe when you get a sense of it with the music and the atmosphere. So yeah, I mean, I guess what's really interesting about this project is that there's a few things, but one thing is that it starts as just a product film, really. It's a simple advert, and the brief to the sound designer is, we've done the animation, now can you put sound design on it? But then actually it just completely explodes into all of these different assets. And you have stuff that, you have to work in quite a modular way. Both as an animator and as the sound team, you've got to be able to break things down into components. Things have to be able to be played in different orders. That's why everything was on a kind of live MPC machine to be able to be played out live. So it's a real unusual project in some ways. But yeah, I mean, that kind of process of creating the animation and it going through all of those sign-offs backwards and forwards to get the timings and the look right with the client is kind of my job, and then it's kind of like passed that on to I think it was GPS did the first sound, and then Jamie Fry did the did the event sound. You know, that's when it's like, right, okay, right at the end, you know, let's go to town with these with the sound effects. And to be honest, I don't think we've got any comments from Nike on the sound. It was like they spent so much time on what does the shoe look like, what does the shoe look like. The sound was like probably done about a week before the event, and just put it on there and go play it out. And I mean, they've got a great ethos of just sort of relentless approach to creativity. I mean, if I go back to this DJ booth here on the arcade machine, I didn't even know that was going to happen. The Nike creative directors just kept going, you know, keep hitting us with your ideas, and we were like, what if it was the DJ booth was an arcade machine? And then they never said that they were actually doing it, and it was only when I turned up to the event I was like, holy shit, they've actually done it. So it's that kind of approach to creativity is brilliant. You know, there's no wrong answers with that kind of event. So you just embrace the idea. So yeah, I'll skip back through all of that. Right. So yeah, now I wanted to talk a little bit about pitching, because I'm trying to strip back the layers and reveal to you guys our process, I guess. So this is an example of sound design, and an example of me working with Jamie Fry at the very beginning of a project to actually try and win the job. So this was a pitch for Slazenger in 2017. Slazenger then had been the official ball of Wimbledon for 115 years. So we came up with this idea of the unmistakable sound of a Slazenger. And so, yeah, there you go, that's 115 years of balls. So our idea was to kind of create an edit using lots of archive of, I think it was a 60-second ad they wanted. In the 60 seconds, you go through a full 115 years. So you start with kind of black and white. Anyone who could do the maths, when's that? 115 years ago, 1902. Yeah, start in 1902 in black and white, and then you kind of almost make it one seamless tennis match up to 2017. And visually, you know, we wanted to do it from almost going from a kind of sepia photography through to black and white, through then get color film, and then right up to kind of high vis, ultra HD video that we have today. And so that was the kind of visual idea. And this is still pitch stage. So to try and sell this in, we basically just nicked a load of clips off the internet of tennis being played in different eras and cut it together. And Jamie Fry went down the tennis courts and recorded himself knocking a few tennis balls about, recording a few bounces, and I think I pretended to be an umpire. So yeah, we basically ended up with this edit for the pitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, quiet please. New balls, please. Silence on court. Ladies and gentlemen, quiet please.
The unmistakable sound of a Slazenger.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a proof of concept, if you like. It's put together quite quickly and quite roughly, but it's enough for a client who's not necessarily creatively minded to grasp what we're trying to communicate to them. And we do that quite a lot. Like, we call them mood reels or stylomatics. You just nick a load of clips off the internet and then splice it together and then try and create the essence of it. But because obviously the sound is so important in that, that's where we collaborated with Jamie to create that soundtrack, basically. And we won the job. We did get to do that. And I'll play you the final one. And it's just quite interesting when you kind of compare the two, because quite a lot of things get tweaks between the pitch and the final one. So I'll play you it, and then we kind of point a few things out. It's quite interesting because there's some bits that they took on board, and some things have lasted all the way to the actual final delivery, whereas some things have been lost, and that is classic. that is client feedback, and so yeah, I thought I put it in there because it's kind of interesting that, you know, sometimes things don't completely get all the way through, and you have to kind of have those conversations and relationships, and it can be client side and, you know, between yourself and your team. So yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about feedback. This is an example of sort of me giving feedback to a composer who I worked with, and I kind of wanted to put this in, not because it's good feedback, but like, this is the kind of shit people have to deal with. Like, I think I you know, appreciate the value of sound, but I've basically just sent him a big email. I've time coded it a bit, so at least I've sort of said, you know, this point, you know, can we focus on this? But I'm using things like, you know, just some building to positive crescendo. Can we strip back the layers? You know, basically it's quite vague. This is not a technical explanation of what needs to change in the music, and it's kind of classic. And I guess what makes a good sound designer composer relationship with a director is your ability to translate. So I can't necessarily speak the language of the software you guys might be using, or even the instrumentation. I'm just speaking in vague terms around what I'm looking to achieve. And so this is Pascal Wise, the composer who's working on this. He's a composer at The Guardian. And so he's trying to translate what I'm saying and turn it into something, but he's also trying to communicate back to me what he's trying to do. So one thing I really like as an example is on this film. This film is about a community of Liverpool fans who are based in Brighton. So they're 270 miles away, and they all watch the football in the pub. And it's not about football, it's about community, and it's about how people make friendships. And Pascal said, what about if we make the entire music, the entire composition, the instrumentation is like a pub band, and at the beginning of the film they're almost sort of tuning up, and then as it builds, it starts to become more and more formed, and they start to work together. They start to almost form that idea of community, and yeah, I wanted to mention that because I think that communicated to me that he completely understood what the film was about, and he's just I hadn't heard him make any sound or record anything or play any music. It was just an idea. So I think something like that's a really good reference point. If you can communicate an idea like that that's quite simple, that ties in with what the filmmaker's trying to achieve, then it can go a long way. But yeah, generally, like another thing that I've found really useful to use when communicating with composers or sound designers is I've done things like this, which is, you know, might seem a bit OCD, but it's also very loose. It's a sort of it's a graph of energy over time. It's put simply, and I've done these loads of times working with Jamie Fry to try and communicate to him what my edit is, what I'm trying to achieve with the edit, and then what I need the music to do. So he's composing music here for a film. This is for University of Bradford. It's kind of like, you know, I don't want to start off at 100% intensity. I want to build, and then I want it to be like quite dramatic. So juxtapose, like it drops out, and then it builds, throws back in, and where the kind of tail offs are. So with that in mind, I'll play you the final piece, the final film, and you might be able to sort of see where we've tried to interpret some of those, and actually how loose that is. You know, it's not completely right, but I found it really useful as a way of communicating. And especially if you're speaking to someone who is musically or from a sound design point of view illiterate and they don't know what you're doing, they're visual, so something like this might be a good way of communicating with each other. So yeah, it doesn't time perfectly. It's not exactly like that drawing, but it works. It works to follow. And I think he's obviously got the idea of what I was trying to do with that edit. It feels quite positive. It feels like quite real. It's got a sense of energy. And ultimately, I gave him that film silent. And I think what's quite impressive when you watch it back is you see the benefit of actually going on the shoot. So he was a sound recordist on the shoot, so there's a lot of actual recorded sound from the space. And it also means we've got a bit of a shorthand, so I can say, oh, that's Zander, that's Amy. Yeah, she's actually met all these people as well. So, I think it's really beneficial if you can do that kind of crossover of both sound design and composing, so that you end up actually getting embedded in the project earlier. Right, yeah, where am I going now? This is a completely different project that there's sound design as an element in it, but it's not used as sound design. It's a music video, so they didn't want to put any other sound effects or anything on the music. So you might be thinking, well, why did we have a sound engineer? And this is an example of how we used a sound on the shoot to create visuals. So this is a music video for the band Kura Kura, and the top line principle of it is there's a photographer working away in a dark room, and he's documenting climate breakdown. And as he develops the photos, you get these moments of time lapse and moments of animation, and he sort of starts to lose his mind and almost get lost in his own medium. So he starts to become one with the photos, or kind of there's various kind of strange visual effects things we start to play with. And obviously one of the things about darkroom is you put the negatives through a series of trays of different chemicals, and we came up with this idea of trying to, as it got more psychedelic and strange, the music video, playing with the droplets, playing with the chemicals in the water. So we started doing these shots here, this is a technique called stroboscopic liquid, and basically to the naked eye that is just a running tap, just a complete constant stream. And so how we created it was by playing a specific hertz sine wave through a speaker. The next page explains it a little bit. You've got this is a very dodgy test setup that we did in Jamie's back garden. So you've got a speaker and you've got a hose, and you tape the hose to the speaker, and then you play a high frequency sound wave through the speaker, which vibrates the hose.
Vibrating through the back of the speaker.
Exactly, yeah. And so basically, like, to the naked eye, like, you can't even really see it moving, and it just looks like there's water running. But to the camera, if you have 24 hertz sound wave and 24 frames per second, the droplets just hover. And then if you change the frequency to 23 hertz, they start rising upwards, and 25, they start rising downwards. And that's how you create these effects. And so, yeah, it's a music video, but we had a sound engineer there who used Max MSP. This is Jim, who is down there with the laptop at the bottom. And we used it to play music through this stroboscopic technique. And the actor could hold his hands in it, so the actor's able to move his hands in real time, like the top right shot, but the droplets hover. And then this bottom left one is basically a metal tray of water with a very thin amount of water on there, and the speaker laid on its back playing sound up, and we just ramped it up and up and up until we blew the speaker. But it kind of vibrated and bounced all these droplets, and the droplets, as they come up, they bounce on the surface tension. So yeah, that's a really nice example, I think, of a collaborative approach to us working with sound. That isn't sound design, this is a completely different output. But I think it's a good example of if you just keep building up collaborative relationships with filmmakers, then you could end up even getting hired on jobs to do stuff like that. Yeah, I won't play you the music video, but there you go, it's a nice little story. And then the last thing I wanted to show you was it's a film about a sound artist, so it's almost gone all the way around the other way. So actually, this is a film about an artist who's currently based in the Pervasive Media Studio, doing a winter residency there, and his name's Javier Velastin, and he is making a sort of he calls it a human-computer duet about the noise in the oceans, and it's loosely based on whale song, and it's an audio-visual performance. So he uses this bowl of water and ink and an overhead projector to create visuals, whilst also using various microphones and underwater microphone, and creating feedback loops in some of the audio software. So yeah, I'll play you this film, but I think it's a kind of nice example in a way that brings it sort of full circle, and I guess that's what I'm trying to communicate is if you work with filmmakers, then it can really go both ways, and get them to make a film about you. So yeah, here's a film about a sound artist.
Under the sea, it's a sound-orientated life. Underwater, light only travels so far. Even in the clearest water, it's a handful of meters. The way that we project ourselves onto nature is problematic. Putting in pulses to find oil under the sea, there's cause and consequence to all of the actions that you take with sound. I feel the space that whales occupy in our culture is wrong. We imagine them in a human-like way. This uncanny voice from this kind of ancient world is a manufactured idea, to a voice that's been sampled and recorded and captured and distributed and edited. I am looking at what role machine learning or some sort of artificial intelligence has to do in the creation and the performance of the piece. Sound art can be very elitist. I think it can be very inaccessible. And actually it doesn't really have to be. So I've got a hydrophone, which is an underwater microphone, which I stick in a bowl of water and sing into it. I create these analog visuals using an overhead projector to create this fluid feeling of the space. I think it can feel a bit magical. There are really good possibilities as part of the winter residency program. They've got this amazing culture of being interruptible here, which means that you can kind of just go up to people and people can come up to you and talk to each other about your project. The act of listening isn't a passive thing. Listening is active. I'm Javier Velastin. I'm a sound artist, and I'm working on a human-computer duet about the noise in the oceans.
So yeah, there you go. That's one of 3 films that we made about artists doing the winter residencies at the Watershed at the moment. Yeah, we made one blue one green one, and one orange one. So that's the blue film. But I guess it's a nice way of tying it all together. Because I think the main thing I'm trying to get across with all these projects is that there's so many different ways of working together, and that actually, you know, it would be ridiculous for me to come and tell you, oh, this is how it works, because actually there's loads of different ways of collaborating, and I think that's the most important thing, is that, you know, it is a collaborative process, and that, you know, you can push and shove and slightly tweak that relationship in many different ways. So yeah, there you go. That's my talk. There's some projects, and yeah, if you want to find out more, go there. But yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. That was my talk for DBS Music. If you want to see more of our work, check us out on reubenandjamie.com or reubendesign.com for animation.